So there's not something that is fixed that says you have to go through X number of incarnations, reincarnations, and multiples of streams of experience. Okay. Much of the process of being incarnated is to learn through experiences. At the same time, there is the question of what is direct learning and what is non-direct learning. Okay? A direct learning means I have to do this. I have to, in some kind of way, go through this, read it, learn about it, try it, fail, try it, succeed. That's direct experience, we can call it. Okay? Wisdom, remember, as I have said before, is non-local knowledge, non-local knowing. It does not have to require direct experience. Wisdom is the field delivering the knowing. So, is it possible for someone to attain a state of openness and receptivity to the field so that the field supplies greater knowing, even though that person is relatively young, so to speak, in the trajectory of a soul's evolution? And the answer is yes. How? By virtue of service to the field of the cosmic masters, to the field of selfless service, KDI-UCL, and the intent of continuous realization. As a result of this, remember when I was describing the dynamics the other day of how karma feeds up, atonement feeds up the chain, so to speak, which draws down descended masters into the field. As the descended masters come from the field above into the next lower field, the next lower realm, into that karmic envelope, they are bringing such higher consciousness into that realm. And so they are boosting that realm in its potential for realization. Therefore, whenever that happens, whoever is active in that realm is affected in terms of their potential for realization. So the teachings, therefore, of the Ethereal Society, for example, regarding this notion that younger souls may possibly become fully enlightened even in one lifetime. This is how it would be possible. As I say, rare, yet possible. It's especially rare also because very few humans even know the principles in general, let alone what their level of soulic maturity is. In fact, in most cases, it's not until there's an attainment of a level 5 soul stable base that this question of enlightenment actually comes up and becomes the driving force for one's existence. Because before that, it is being one with God at level 4. And that oneness with God isn't about full-on enlightenment. It's about God realization. It's about intimacy with the divine. It's about surrender and worshiping the divine. Yet it is not the attainment of oneself, the attainment of Christ-Buddhic union. It's not the attainment of cosmic consciousness. You see? So the idea or the notion of full enlightenment is not a notion that is very popular amongst humanity anyway, and certainly is even less popular, so to speak, or less graspable by those who are at lower tier soul levels. You are teaching someone. They are very excited. They come for a few times. Next thing you know, you don't hear from them again. They got so turned on, yet they could not get to a point where they had surpassed a certain threshold of commitment. Because let's say if they're level 2, they're still here to collect a whole lot of experiences. So what's the nature of their environment? What's the nature of the influences in their environment that would dictate to them or would set the table, so to speak, in determining what their spectrum of experiences might be? Now, in a lot of traditional societies, you could say you can take someone who's a relatively young soul and you can put them and have them spend their life in special environment, like at a monastery. 5-year-old kid, put him in a monastery. This child doesn't know much else besides the monastery as they grow up. So their life is very restricted, their life is very controlled. And if in a monastery, the path, the teaching is all about selfless service, unconditional love, kindness, awakening, becoming enlightened, and this then may give itself to this being, this child, an opportunity to skip several levels in the course of one lifetime. Instead of start off as a level 2, and this was a really good life, I leave this life as a level 2. There's the opportunity to actually advance much more. Other cases are the exceptional challenges which come. And when a being has a chance to rise up and address those challenges, then there is additional karmic merits which can come. For example, someone who sacrifices their life to save others. You know, some kind of martyr, some kind of hero, a shiro, where it's very clear that what this person did was truly an exceptional act, a heroic act of selfless service and unconditional love, without regard to the self, truly without regard to the self, without hesitation, without looking for reward, without saying, please remember me, please honor me, blah, this kind of business. There is an example where at the end point of that person's life, in a bodily form, what they exhibited, what they manifested was a consciousness and a behavior of a truly, truly open and awakened, selfless being. And in which case, if the impact of that is so huge, then karmically, the impact of that can be enough that with divine cosmic grace, there is an opportunity for that soul to jump. Because the lessons, what is the nature of lessening in the first place? The lessening of a soulic being is realization. Realization of source. Source is all, yet source is as. It is as something, as infinite somethings. So source as this paper. For this paper, there is the separation consciousness from source, and there is the there is the connection consciousness to and with source. It is to allow all that exists to have the realization that it is of source in its own manner of processing realization, of processing sentience, of consciousness, that it is of source. Okay? If you look at this piece of paper, this napkin, you say, well, that's really a stretch. How can this thing become enlightened? How can it have a notion of itself as being of source? Well, where did the paper come from? It came from a tree, right? Is it so hard to think of a tree as having an understanding of source, of nature? You see? Can the forest have an understanding of source and nature? So it's just extension of the spectrum. It's how much have we allowed ourselves to think down the line and think up the line, up the chain. Everything that exists, individual atoms have consciousness. It's just that because we're so trapped in the human model, it's hard to imagine what consciousness of anything other than a human state is. So, anyway, it is possible. And the teachings of the Lord Aetherius, Mars Sector 6, Saint Uling, Yeshua, all of these beings, all the members of the Great White Brotherhood, the Intergalactic Healing Command, the Galactic Council, these beingness, essences, do acknowledge that it is possible to attain enlightenment in a given lifetime. Now remember, of the 9 freedoms, what is it that's necessary to attain enlightenment? Bravery, okay. Unconditional love, okay. Selfless service, okay. It doesn't say the prerequisite is you must have lived 10,000 lifetimes. It doesn't say that you have to be a level 5 being. It's bravery, unconditional love, selfless service. These are the prerequisites. So then, are you living that? It's not that you just pass through that one stage and into the next one and then into the next one. Are you living all of that? And if you are living all of that, even with challenges, then the next stage for you would be enlightenment. You see? And are you being guided for that? So even if you came as a relatively immature soul being, if you're in an environment that continually nurtures bravery, unconditional love, selfless service, and guidance, then the potential is there for full-on realization. Make sense? Now, we need to stop on that because it's a different question and talk about technologies now.
Thank you.